I see a little silhouette of a man's got a moosh, will you do the fandango, thunderbolt and lightning, very, very frightening me, oh, whatever. What is up, guys? It's Megman Chief Fan here, and welcome back to another video. I'm doing my December book reviews, or wrap-up, or whatever I'm gonna call it. Probably December wrap-up, because that's what all the cool kids call it. This is my first wrap-up video ever. And this is probably going to end up being my favorite because I just get to talk about so many books. If you want to know me, I am a fast reader. I'm really fast, and I read 16 books this month. I'm proud of myself. Now, before I get in hold of myself with my pretentious talk, I just want to say I don't have all the books on me. A lot of them were lent from the library because I'm cheap. So I don't own all the books that I have, pretty much plain and simple. But anyway, let's get started. The first book that I read in the month was A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. This is, if you count this as a Dickens book, this would be my fourth Dickens book. It is the most charming story I've ever read in my life. It is pure beautiful. It takes matters in its own hands. It talks about these really depressing things at times, but it makes you so cheerful. The ending is not Dickens-ish. It's just happy. It's such a happy story. It's one of the most enchanting stories I've ever read in my life. If you haven't read A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens, what are you doing? It's amazing. It's truly beautiful. It's just fantastic. Though I'm probably just going to give it a 4 out of 5 stars because it kind of was too short for my taste, but it was just beautiful. And because it was so short, I was able to read this in one sitting. So, it's A Christmas Carol. The next book that I read in a month was easily the most weird, not obscure, it's actually relatively popular, but it's the most insane novel I have ever read in my entire life. It's A Confederacy of Dunces by John Kennedy Toole. How am I supposed to talk about this book? How? It's just... Ugh. How? I could go on for hours talking about this book. Just how weird it is. Ignatius J. Riley, Cheese Dip, New Orleans, Mother. That's the book. Thank you, good night. This book broke me. This was the one that broke me. It's not even bad. It was so insane that it just broke me. But, as well, should I call this a bad book? No. Should I call it a good book? No. Is it okay? No. I technically gave this a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, but it's... I don't know anymore. It's lollipop out of lollipop. That's what it is. It's lollipop out of lollipop. That's my rating for this book. Moving on. I don't want to sit here all day saying about how weird a book is. Just... Confederacy of Dunces. It's an experience. One mind trip of an experience. The next book that I read, I'm getting all the books that I don't own off of me so that I can just be like, oh, here's all the books that I own because I have a big stack of books next to me. But the next book that I read, I thought was going to be the weirdest book in my life, but after reading Confederacy of Dunces, it's not. It's Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Yes, A Confederacy of Dunces is more odd of a novel than Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. What? I liked this book. I really liked this book a lot. But on a critical standpoint, I'm giving it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars because it's just... When it started to get really, really good, all the drug talk started to get in the way. And there's a certain point where you should talk about a certain topic enough. They crossed the line there with talking about drugs way too much. And it's not even the interesting part of taking drugs. You think he talked all about the hallucination. It's more about, well... how do we get the drugs? It's all that talk. And if you're going to talk about drugs, talk about the hallucinations. I don't condone drugs in any way possible. In fact, I'm against them. But if you're going to talk about drugs, just talk about the interesting part. Talk about how people feel about taking drugs. I was not a fan of that part. But the rest of the book was very well written. It was very fun. It was the most raunchy thing I've read in a while. It's good. It's good. I liked a Hunter S. Thompson novel. Be proud of me. The next book that I read was As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. People told me that I should read As I Lay Dying, or just William Faulkner in general, if I like John Steinbeck. I really like John Steinbeck, and I absolutely did not like William Faulkner. Like, at all. I mean, this novel's not awful. I give it like a 2 out of 5 stars, but it was the most boring novel I read in a long, long time. It's just... so dull. So dull. And it's not inherently bad or anything. Actually, yeah, you would call it a bad book, but the plot was just nothing. The characters were nothing. The setting was setting up to be interesting, but it turned out to be nothing. And the ending. The ending. I hated the ending of this book. I don't want to give out spoilers, but just be warned, the ending is awful. This is probably the only book in the month that I will full-heartedly not recommend. Just don't read William Faulkner. He's not that good. He's just not that good. The next book that I read was The Love of the Last Tycoon by F. Scott Fitzgerald. I have a list up here, and I'm just going by all the books that I don't have with me. So, next one is The Love of the Last Tycoon by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is the last Fitzgerald book that Fitzgerald ever wrote, and he didn't even complete this. He died about going like 2/3 of the way through the book. But I liked it. I thought it was pretty decent. It had a fun story going along. It was pretty well written. My major problem with the book was that I thought the characters were very flat. I didn't like the characters all that much. But past that, I just... It was okay. I personally liked it. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. It's fun. It's fun. What else do I have to say? The next book that I read... Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. It's just, I have to find these books on these lists. Oh my goodness. But, Death of a Salesman. This is my first Arthur Miller play, and this is probably his most famous one. And critically, it's great. I really liked this. But also, it was kind of too deep at times. It just hit home so many times that you almost feel like you're going to bawl tears just watching it. I watched the performance while reading it, which was a really good performance. I think it was the Dustin Hoffman performance. But I really liked Death of a Salesman, but it just kind of was too striking to me at times that it just kind of left some of the enjoyability. Because this could have easily been one of the greatest plays ever written, but it kind of messed up at times. So, it's Arthur Miller. I'm going to read more from him, but not anytime soon, because there were the problems with the play. But overall, I gave it a 4 out of 5, because it was pretty good. It was really good, actually. The next book that I read, I'm terrible with words, but I just realized that I'm god-awful with words. I'm probably going to look back on these videos one day and say, my goodness, did I look like that? What was up with my haircut? The next book that I read was Travels with Charlie in Search of America by John Steinbeck. I went on a little John Steinbeck kick this month, aka 2 books. What are the odds? But this one was okay. It wasn't anything special. It was just, I liked the concept. It seemed like a less insane version of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, but instead of going mainly towards Las Vegas, it was circling around the United States. And I kind of liked this. It had its fun moments. I liked the dog that John Steinbeck went with. It was a dog named Charlie. He was a giant poodle, and he only responded in commands in French. That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. I know this is true. This is a true event, but Charlie, oh my goodness, he's like the best dog ever. But Travels with Charlie, it was okay. I know I keep saying these books were okay, but I'm saving the really good books for later. So, yeah, Travels with Charlie. I don't know how to finish this, but except saying that I gave it a 3 out of 5. Now, is that all the books that I read from the library? Yeah, I think that's all the books I read from the library. Now on to the books that I own, which is this stack of books. I read all these this month, and I'm excited to talk about them. So why do I have to wait? Let's be impatient and let's go. First book out of the physical copy pile that I read was Grendel by John Gardner. I don't usually read books in one day, but I read this in one day. It was so phenomenal. It was the greatest. I think the best way to describe Grendel is to Beowulf how Wicked is to the Wizard of Oz. I think that's the perfect way to describing this, and it was just great. I personally liked the scene with Grendel and the dragon. I think that was a phenomenal scene, and this book, it just was so well written. It was so well done. This book could have easily been a disaster, but John Gardner was just such a good writer writing this. I can full-heartedly recommend this book. It's an easy 4.5 out of 5 for me. It's just brilliant. And then I read 3 Kurt Vonnegut books! 3! This is insane. I never read 3 books from an author in 1 month before, but, Kurt Vonnegut's one of my favorites, so it's gonna be destined to be one of the... I'm gonna be destined to read a bunch of his books. And I have a goal, by the end of next year, I am going to read all of his novels. Not all of his everything he's ever written, but all of his novels. That's my plan for next year, and I've read 5 so far. So, which ones did I read in the month of December? One of them was Breakfast of Champions by, of course, Kurt Vonnegut. Why did I say by? This is easily if it wasn't for Confederacy of Dunces, this would be the most odd book I've ever read in my life. But, unlike A Confederacy of Dunces where it hindered itself from being so weird, this was actually so weird it was good. But it was very awkward at times. Like, there was this whole chapter, like, let me find it. There's this whole chapter where just talked about girls' underwear. What? Kurt Vonnegut, don't be a pervert, okay? Don't go around talking about underwear, okay? That is creepy. But if you were to tell me how to describe this story, I wouldn't. I'll just list a sequence of events. That's the best way to describe this novel. It's a sequence of events, but it's still really good for some reason. I liked it. And also, before I go on to the next book, there's a lot of pictures in here. Like, this is like a picture book. There's so many pictures in here. It's insane on how many pictures there are in here. Next one, Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. If you've seen my, my bookshelf tour, I mentioned that this was my favorite Vonnegut novel. And, yeah, it is my favorite Vonnegut novel. This was absolutely fantastic. This is my only 5-star rating of this month. I cannot recommend this enough. It's truly a brilliant novel. It has so many memorable characters, especially Newt. I think Newt was brilliant. He was like... he's just a midget. That's all I have to say. That's the only thing I'm giving away with Newt is that he was a midget. That's all I'm giving away. You read the rest, and it's great. But there's... what I love about Vonnegut is that he hints these, like, little, like... jokes throughout the book. Not jokes, but like kind of like these terms throughout the book, and it kind of plays within the plot. At first they just kind of seem like gibberish, but then they seem logical. They get logical as you go along with the book. And it was just excellent. I loved this book. I flew through this in like 2 days. Just read Cat's Cradle. It's fantastic. The next book that I read was Sirens of Titan, also by Kurt Vonnegut. This is my 3rd and last book that I read from Kurt Vonnegut. This I thought was better than Breakfast of Champions, but not as good as the greatness that was Cat's Cradle, but I like this. This is very much more straight science fiction than any of his other novels. Like, that's what kind of... This was my only flaw with this book, was that it was just kind of too science fiction-y at times, that it just kind of was unengaging at times, but it was still fantastic. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars because it's Vonnegut. His writing is amazing. His characters are amazing. His stories are amazing. They're just amazing. What else do I have to say? What else do I have to say? I keep saying that over and over and over again. Make that my catchphrase! Now, we have to talk about Salinger. Oh my goodness. Salinger, he is the best! Oh my goodness, Salinger! I want to be Salinger. I just bam, Salinger. Just... so good! It was so good! And the first one I read was Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters and Seymour an Introduction. And Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters. Seymour an Introduction was okay, but Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters was fantastic. It was pure gold. I'm saying this is a collection of 2 novellas called Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters and Seymour an Introduction, and Raise High the Roof Beam Carpenters, which is the first novella in this book, is just 100 pages of gloriness, and I'm safely calling it my favorite novella of all time. Okay, let me get this right. I mean, it's not as good as George Orwell's Animal Farm. Animal Farm is still the best novella I've ever read, but I'm calling this my favorite. It is just so beautifully written. The narrative moist of J.D. Salinger's writing is just brilliant. I loved this book so much. This is easily Salinger's best work besides Catcher in the Rye, which is so good. So good. I love this book. Just read Salinger. He is the best. But we're not done talking about Salinger because I also read 9 stories. 9 stories. It's so good. I'm fanboying right now because Salinger is so good. It's so fantastic. I probably sound obnoxious right now. But, yeah, 9 stories. It's a collection of 9 short stories by J.D. Salinger. I think most of them were printed in the New Yorker, but I think some of them were printed somewhere else. They're fantastic. The only one I really didn't like was Down at the Dinghy. I don't know. No, it was The Laughing Man. It was The Laughing Man. I didn't really like that story. It was just kind of bland and generic, which I don't expect from Salinger. I expect great things from Salinger. But my favorite story is either Perfect Day for Banana Fish or Teddy. Those were fantastic short stories. I truly loved them. They're 2 of my favorite short stories of all time now. And plus, The Perfect Day for Banana Fish has such a shocking ending that you will be just insane. It will be insane. And then, once you read Perfect Day for Banana Fish, go and read Zoe from Franny and Zoe, because it will make so much more sense in the scheme of things with the Glass family coherency, whatever that word is. You know what I'm talking about. But Salinger, he's just such a great writer. Read Salinger. He's the best. And the final 2 books is a part of a book series. No, it's not Harry Potter. Everybody calm down. But it's probably the most famous book series besides Harry Potter. It's probably, on a historical standpoint, it is the most famous book series of all time. And I knew I was going to like this series. But not this much. Oh my goodness. I did not expect to like it this much. What did I read? I read the first 2 books of the Lord of the Rings series. I just finished The Two Towers today. It was so good. Both of these books get a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was so fantastic. The characters, you know these characters. Frodo, Sam, Legolas, Gimli, Gandalf. You know all of these characters. Even if you haven't read the books, you've seen the movies. They're fantastic. Peter Jackson's movies are fantastic. Tolkien's writing and books are fantastic. Middle-earth is fantastic. The story is so compelling. The setting is beautiful. The only problem that I could possibly have with this book is that the descriptions kind of get repetitive at times. But all in all, Lord of the Rings is such a fantastic series. I cannot recommend it enough. It's beautiful. It's pure beauty. And if it wasn't for The Sandman, it would be my favorite book series of all time, even though I haven't read the third one, which I can't really say it's my favorite yet, but it's aiming up to be one of my favorites. So that was the video. I'm really hoping this turned out good. Probably not, but it probably will because I'm amazing, but my voice, I'm starting to lose my voice, so I'm just gonna end it here. I'm Mega Man Chief Fan, and I'll see you later, guys.